Good day, my name is Susan and I'm welcoming you to my channel, my YouTube channel called Social UX POV, which means social UX point of view, the point of view being myself, and through the lens of UX, informed by social, the views and opinions of others, which I will examine and take a look at. So this channel is dedicated to the examination of various aspects of UX, which basically apply to business and of course the users. Just to let you know briefly where I'm coming from and why I started this channel and why I named it as I did. Basically, my background is I see it intertwined in three threads, which is basically a braid: art, business, and technology. And they're very tightly woven, those three, if you imagine a braid. And I tend to move from one into the other, and they interweave and intertwine, and they've ended up in this user experience space in which I'm in. So I am a certified UX designer and also UX specialist. My passion is information architecture. I've been on a long journey. It started back in art school days, in where I was studying to become an animator. I was inspired by movement. I love life. I love people. I love movement. I'm very dynamic in that way. I have that kind of energy. So I aspired to be an animator, but I found out you need to go to art school to become an animator. You need to study the ground. You need to understand a figure-ground relationship. So the ground, of course, is the nature, the landscape. What is behind the figure that is moving through this space? The experience. What is in the, you have to have both. So I had to study not only the nature, which the planet that we exist in, which is our ground, but also the human anatomy of the figure as it moves through space and changes objects, the human one. And so I had to study the history of art, and through the history of art, the big takeaway was the experience, the ability to empathize with the human condition, because artists tell great stories, and the stories they tell are about the human condition. And the reason art moves us is that we have a connection, we have a compassion, empathy, shock, horror, whatever it is, we're connecting with that story. That, it's in writing, it's in music, it's in the visual arts. I came through the visual arts. But nevertheless, the final bottom line was empathy for the human condition, which now, if you look at myself in the user experience space, I would say that the U in user is the U in human, what it is to be human, and use the tools. We've always had tools, and media is an extension, particularly social media is an extension of our nervous system. So this is a tool that we use in order to extend our experience as human beings. So I studied the arts, and then I shifted into sales and marketing. So you may ask yourself, why would you go into sales and marketing? Well, the user experience, the condition of being human, is actually in this time, in this age, and for, a long time now, is informed by the buying and selling of things, of objects, of commodities, and of ultimately services. So the ability, I had learned about an idea. Actually, I hadn't really fully fleshed it out, but the idea of information architecture came to me while I was in art school through a book, I think, by Richard Saul Wurman, and maybe some quotes, particularly, I think it was MIT, Leonardo, that said the artist is more interested in organizing information than they are in personal expression. And that really, something really connected in that because even though I love art, I did personal expression, but I wasn't necessarily great at it. I was interested in information, so I shifted into sales and marketing, because basically the thing that's in common between sales and art is that you're an agent of change. When you walk in the door, when people meet you, you are bringing change. Artists change things. They disrupt, they innovate, they create. And so also do salespeople. One of the reasons you don't like salespeople is you know that something in your life may change or not, or they're going to put a new idea about something you might need to change. So I moved into that space and I started to explore businesses as organizations themselves and how they organize their use their technology to organize their businesses. At that time we had accounting. We were starting to do, word processing, desktop publishing, using digital tools to and building websites, make your business case, sell, inform, educate your customers, your clients, your users. So I explored that for a long time. And through that experience, moved into actually using the technologies myself. At a certain point, it became, hey, content management systems. I went through all the technological revolutions, the first one being word processing and its ability for you to create documents and create text, organize that. Then the next thing that followed that was a desktop publishing. So you could do digital books, you could do magazines, you could do brochures, and so on and so forth. I did a little advertising in that space, a little digital advertising. I looked at typography, and then we moved into image processing came next. So the ability to process images in such a way that now you see filters on images and apps and so on. But, changing basically the digital algorithms. And then nonlinear editing. So I moved into this space, coming from an animation background because I had, initially wanted to be an animator. That was disrupted by digital technology, 2 and 3D specifically. So the classical animation was basically disrupted and replaced by digital animation. So nonlinear editing also disrupted the field of film. We shifted into video, no longer editing in analog, sort of a physical way of editing and cutting and splicing together pieces of tape. We could all do this digitally now, and it was nonlinear because you didn't have to start at the beginning and work to the end. You could work however you wanted. That was very revolutionary at the time. Now we take it for second nature. Then after that we had content management systems. So the ability, I moved into that space. Actually, that's when I sort of started my own businesses. Sort of the idea of web design. I actually created something called animated information design. Was this business that I started, never really went anywhere. It was during the time of Flash, but the idea intrigued me. Then of course content management systems came up. So you had the ability to help clients, small businesses, specifically manage their own content, set up a system to manage it. The next thing was, of course, social media, the big revolution. So the ability now to, through the internet, of course, to connect and to share and to experience and to express yourself, the personal expression, back to the personal expression, empowering us to express ourselves. But of course, that revolution is very problematic in the sense that if you look at new media, and I did new media studies, specifically Marshall McLuhan, who is the guru of media studies, Canadian, out of Edmonton, Alberta, my hometown. So I studied a lot of his works. One of the things he does say about media is there's actually a book called The Laws of Media that he wrote, which basically lay out the fact that when media has this ability to go from one extreme to the other. So prior to social media, if you recall, we were in the mass media, the extreme of mass media, which was a one-way push, no pushing back, no interaction. Just, advertising, Mad Men, billboards. So the consumer, the user experience was very limited. Social media at the other extreme brought us this ability to share and to connect and to be intimate. Now that intimacy, of course, has gone to some extremes itself, where we have invasion of privacy, which is a huge issue, which has not still to this day been fully addressed, data privacy and so on, which is a part of the UX experience, which we'll be discussing in some of my future videos. So yeah, the ground, the figure in the ground, this idea of social now being the ground. As a certified UX designer and specialist, what that basically means is I, studied with someone who is an expert in a company called Akendi, and they have this process actually being a real business dealing with large government information websites. They've used and they've validated and they've, got this process that really works. I studied, I wrote my exam, became certified. Bringing to the table, of course, not just that little course, but my experience in art, in technology, in sales. Sales is also psychology. Typically, people come into the UX space from human-computer interactions, statistics, library science. They have PhDs. I came from a very different area, but nevertheless, it's a philosophical foundation that I come from in looking at and examining the user experience. So this idea of social now is not really included in the Akendi process or in other layers that I've seen of UX, which basically show, the 4 or 5 different layers, with the visual design being at the top, the tip of the iceberg, going all the way down to the strategy, the scope, the structure, the skeleton, the skin, the visual design. That whole space, actually, I think the ground behind it is social. So that's why I got the name Social UX. That's where it comes from. POV being point of view. That's a film. That's a video. Who is looking at it? Whose point of view is this? My point of view, and the others that I will be examining through their blogs, through writing. Initially, examining blogs, which I through the lens of UX, and then interviews down the road. Because this social UX POV channel will be dedicated to areas of UX that affect business. And predominantly there are 8 different areas, branding being the first one, marketing, customer service. Then we've got the area of usability. Underneath that, we have information architecture. We have data. We have the accessibility, and we have the visual design. So all of those areas are part of the umbrella of UX, and they have to be examined and discussed because they are all affected and influenced by UX, which is the user experience, what it is to be human and interact with businesses in this social space. So yeah, that's briefly my background, what I'm bringing to this channel. And if you like it, please subscribe, and look forward to interacting with you. Thank you for your time. Good day.